rated T to M. Hey, want to hear a PC Game Pass ad? I'll take your silence as a yes. Want new games on day one like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 or Stalker 2? I thought so. How about unlocking all the League of Legends champions when you link your Riot Games account? All for one low monthly price? Well, guess what? We got you. Learn more at xbox.com/PC Game Pass or click the banner. Stalker 2 available November 20th, 2024. Game catalog varies by region and over time. And that's the end of the script.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I am happy to have you. As always, if you text ARMY to 33777, you can go to a forum, put in your contact info, and as we're doing the gathering around the country, we will make sure we let you know. And also, if there's ever an action alert, you're signing up to, if you want to be an activist, we'll send you an email and say, hey, here's this thing before Congress or a state legislature. You can reach out and tell your state legislator or member of Congress yes or no on this item. Make you an effective activist just by listening to the show. Let's talk about millennials, shall we, and Gen Z. You know, the media talking point now is to still be obsessed with millennials, and really it's starting to be Gen Z coming into their own. But younger millennials and Gen Z, I want to make a point for you. If you were born, say, in 1985 or later, particularly 1990 or later, you're Phillips age, or you're in your 20s, you're starting out. With few exceptions, you are the generation that has never really experienced the full promise of the American dream. Now, the United States continues to be the best country on earth, and I know there are people who say, oh yeah, America's the best, but they say it because they're American. And they're like, well, I mean, the Chinese say they're the best. The people in Russia say Russia's the best. The people in Inner Mongolia say Inner Mongolia's the best. No, I have lived and traveled around the world. There is no country on planet Earth where people are willing to die to get here to have the American dream. So one of my bones to pick with J.D. Vance, who I kind of understood what he mean in his convention speech, he's talking about America's not an idea. It's blood and soil and it's territory, it's land. People are dying for where they live. They're not dying for a story. That's true, but it's also not true. The Democrats are making the case that America is an idea, not a blood and soil territory. It's actually both. People are willing to die for the American story. People are willing to die for their homeland. It's more complicated than what either of them want to say, but at the same time, a lot of people want to come here because they don't want our social services. They don't want our taxpayer dollars. They want what they have heard is something called the American dream. We're in this country. You can be arrested by the police in Louisville, Kentucky, and go on to win the Olympic gold medal in golf like Scottie Scheffler. In this country, you can be the daughter of immigrants from India and Jamaica and go on to be vice president of the United States. In this country, your mom can be an immigrant from Ireland, and you can be president of the United States. That's the American dream. And people are willing to walk across desert and through jungle and swim across large bodies of water to get here for that. And progressives in this country have screwed it up because there used to be a long-settled, agreed-upon idea between the left and the right in this country that when you got here, you assimilated into this country, you learned the language, and you became an American. And your old ways and your old culture assimilated into this country, and so our cuisine was improved. Let me just talk about one of my advertisers real quick here. Don't want to put them on the spot, but you'll know I advertise for Omaha Steaks. That company, the family that owns Omaha Steaks, in the early 1900s, they're a Jewish family. They were fleeing religious persecution in Eastern Europe, Latvia specifically. They sailed to the United States and got off the ship in New York at Ellis Island. And then the family, unhappy in New York, in 1917, got on a train and decided they would get off when the land looked like Latvia. They got off in Omaha, Nebraska, been there ever since. Their company's been running strong now since 1917, over 100 years old. That's the American dream. Here's a problem. If you were born in the late 80s, you heard of the glory days of America. You were born in the great stage of Ronald Reagan, the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the unquestioned rivalry of America on the world stage. But you came of age after 9/11 and the shattering of the American dream that we were bordered by two oceans, a continent to ourselves almost, with Canada as our hat and Mexico as our footstool, and no one could mess with us. And then two planes flew into buildings and brought them crashing down. And another flew into the Pentagon and one into a field. And suddenly, for the first time, we here at home were vulnerable, and it shook up the American psyche as much as that bullet through Donald Trump's ear probably shook him up, and for which he's probably still feeling the effects. And as a result of that, younger millennials and Gen Z, they're starting to make questionable decisions in large part because they have concluded that the American dream doesn't work for them. It's one reason there's so much hostility in certain age groups, particularly younger white guys who are opposed to immigration, not just illegal, but legal immigration as well, because they think, why are we bringing all these people here? I haven't had my share of the American dream, and we're bringing other people here to try to have it. You may disagree with them, but you should at least try to understand it, that they were promised an American dream. The promise of every American has always been that the children will have it better than the parents. And that's actually less and less the case these days. It's still true for a good segment of society, but it also is more true for people on the higher income scale than the lower income scale. And what is that? It's because as government has become more complex, this is not talked about, but this is the God's honest truth. As government becomes more complex, it becomes a subsidy for the wealthy. The wealthy can hire the lawyers and CPAs to navigate them through the complexity to make them money. The working class cannot. And it festers working class resentment. It festers the resentment of the lower income and the middle class. And they begin to make questionable decisions. Exhibit A. Younger Americans are more likely to turn to sports betting than stock investing as a way to make money. A report in Bloomberg. Every single one of you knows the lottery is a tax on the poor. The poor are hoping to spend $1 or $2 on a scratch-off and make some money. The more money you have, the less likely you are to play the lottery. Full disclosure, I bought a lottery ticket because the Mega Millions got over $300 million, and I figured, might as well spend a couple bucks. Generally, the lottery is a tax on the poor. When you go to the grocery store, the constituency you see, or the gas station in particular, the constituency you see buying the scratch-offs tends not to be upper income. They're hoping for a quick buck because they've given up on a system whereby they can, over a long time, make a lot of money. They're looking for the quick buck. And as younger Americans give up on the American dream, they're beginning to do the same thing with sports betting. And all of the institutions of American cultural society at this moment are working to induce them to do it. You cannot watch a sports event on television these days, particularly ESPN, without getting the odds on the game. I don't know if this is the case right now. I'm going to try this live with you. I noticed it this morning. Google has a website, trends.google.com. Yep. This isn't always the case, but yet one of the top trends, Mauricio Pochettino, on whether or not he's going to take the U.S. men's national team job. Let's see. What's another one here? Yep. Vikings receiver Jordan Addison carted off the field. Michael Judon, Patriots trading Matt Judon to Falcons following prolonged stalemate. Buffalo Bills starting linebacker Matt Milano out indefinitely with torn left bicep. What's my point here? Look at Google Trends right now. Most of the top trends are on football players because guys are putting their fantasy football teams together right now, but also they're beginning to place their sports bets. People are going on jumping, looking to see if they can make some money off of sports. And you get on ESPN, they're going to give you the odds. You get on most of the news broadcasts now that cover sports, they're going to give you the odds. You look on local websites. You follow your social media influencers. A lot of them are going to do sports betting. You will not hear sports betting out of my mouth. I want you to be clear here. I'm not opposed to it. I've got plenty of friends who do sports betting, oftentimes on my front porch over bourbon and cigars on a Sunday night. But I'm not going to promote it because I see where this is headed with younger men in particular who've given up on the American dream, and they're decided in the spirit of the American dream and American entrepreneurship, they're going to go make their own way in the world, and they're going to learn sports, and they're going to bet on sports, and that's going to be their ticket to fortune because they've given up on the rest of the world. And that's actually a pretty damning indictment on where we are as a country. And again, it's because we become such a complex country with complex systems. The longer and more complex those systems become, the greater a subsidy is on the people who already have wealth. I have a money manager and I have a CPA who's a strategic CPA who reviews what I'm spending every month and tells me, do this, you can get tax write-offs. Do this, you'll increase your deduction. Do this. Y'all don't have that. I didn't have that until this year. Couldn't have afforded it if I wanted to. I've been blessed in the last year with ad revenue. I can do this now. And it's eye-opening to me how a good CPA and a money guy can find you a path through the regulatory burdens of the tax code and the Code of Federal Regulations that the middle class can't afford. Our government laments, particularly the Democrats, the income gap between the wealthy and the poor. They're the ones who've caused it. It's that wealth gap is not because of tax cuts for the wealthy. It's because the complexity of the federal government due to regulations by bureaucrats and Congress has acted as a subsidy for the wealthy, so only the wealthy can get rich. And so where are the poor and middle class headed? Sports betting apps, lottery tickets. They've given up on the behaviors of a society of putting money aside in a mutual fund that has a regular, reliable rate of growth compounded by dividends and growing over time because they're trying to get rich quick because they feel it. They're falling behind. They know it. And this is something I think Republicans should be focused on. And it frames, I think, J.D. Vance, why J.D. Vance is embracing in his economic policies a lot of things that used to be Democratic talking points, a lot of things that used to be unionization, for example, some government regulations, for example, workers' rights and labor law that benefits workers. Supposedly, they typically don't. But he's advocating old school labor politics. Why? Because we had those old school labor politics when people felt like government was falling behind. And he, as a product of the born in the mid-'80s, lived the end of American empire, so to speak, but came of age at a time where the nation was at war, our psyche shattered, and more people his age and younger thinking they were never going to seize hold of the American dream. I am begging some Republican politician, please, Donald Trump, someone, take up their cause. that the American dream has to be for them as well. That all of us need to have better days ahead of us than behind us. That's always been the spirit of this country, that our kids would always have a better country than we have. And more kids are believing that's not the case, and in the process are turning to riskier and riskier behaviors to try to get ahead, and that's going to perpetuate the destabilization of our society. I can see it coming clearly, and every single one of you know exactly what I'm talking about. But we don't have anybody in Washington, D.C. accurately assessing this problem. If anything, the Democrats want to make the problem worse with even more regulation, and the Republicans have no idea how to navigate through this. Somebody's got to figure it out quick. AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson, oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. Hello there, welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number 877-973-7425. Let me get to Jason's phone call here. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric. Glad to be on the show. Appreciate you. I had a quick question for you. With your theory on the Iranians and there being sympathizers in the Biden administration, how come there hasn't been a special investigation or a prosecutor by the Justice Department brought to investigate collusion between the Biden administration and Iran to hack Trump?
Oh, there should
and
be.
Get dirt on Trump.
Now, well, let me be clear here on that particular one. There's no evidence at all, not even a speculation from the Trump campaign that the Biden team colluded with Iran to do this. It's just clearly Iran has a dog in this fight. Iran wants Kamala Harris. So even the Trump campaign is not saying that that Biden and Kamala Harris worked with the Iranians. This is different from the Hillary Clinton allegations that somehow Donald Trump was actually colluding with the Russians to steal the election. The Trump campaign is not saying that about the Biden-Harris team. And even if they did, there's no way on God's good earth that Merrick Garland would pick a special counsel to investigate, because despite the media trying to tell you that Merrick Garland is some sort of upstanding guy, he's a political hack of the first order who will do everything he can to protect Kamala Harris to stop Donald Trump. So that's not going to happen before the election for sure. That being said, there should be an investigation, a deep investigation to Iran. And rumors are there actually is one in Washington, D.C. that extends beyond the FBI into the national security apparatus of the country. I would be very curious to see where that is headed. Several different people who were named in those semaphore reports are suddenly out of work and not leaving the country and not talking to the press, which is a big red flag that something's up. We'll see where that develops. Right now, I got to tell you about Swiss America, because between banks collapsing and regulators regulating and interest rates going up and maybe coming down, we don't know. Well, Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about a secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from the secret war, you need their report about the secret war on cash. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can educate you on protecting your assets in their report. You can get it. It takes about 15 minutes to read. It's highly educational and informative. It also includes digital forms of currency. The report is completely free. All you do is call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. You just mentioned my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K. When you call or text 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK, or just go to call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. Let Swiss America inform you about the secret war on cash. Message and data rates may apply. Greetings and welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. John, I'm glad you called on this. I would have forgotten to talk about it. Welcome to the show, John. How are you?
I'm good, Eric. Thank you. I go by John the Jarhead.
Excellent.
Watched a pretty sad video today. It's the 7th anniversary of us leaving Afghanistan. So they decided to have a parade, and their centerpiece for their parade was all of our military equipment. Mm-hmm. And they actually had our helicopters flying overhead. And I know an Apache's not an easy helicopter to fly. So they've apparently been training, and that was a huge error in judgment that our administration made.
Yeah, and look, I honestly think this is it's ripe for an ad campaign by some super PAC out there to have paraded our military equipment that they still possess and haven't sent to Hamas. Now, John, I got to ask you, being a jarhead, so your views on the Navy, are they just the Marine Corps' Uber, or are they their own branch of the service?
Well, they take us wherever we want to go, so I have no complaints against the Navy. My son-in-law is in the Navy. My best friend was in the Navy, so I love all branches of service.
Good.
If anybody's willing to serve this country, God bless them.
Yeah, amen to that. Listen, and thank you for your service. I'm glad you called about that because I totally would have forgotten the story today. I had it in the stack of stuff. There's just been so much other stuff going on. If you haven't seen this video, the Taliban did a military parade in Kabul, and they paraded down the street all of the surplus American helicopters and Humvees and armored personnel carriers that we left behind. They had the Apaches flying overhead. They had the Jeeps and Humvees on the ground. It was disgusting. And it comes courtesy of the Biden-Harris administration that left all the stuff behind. And remember, Kamala Harris said she was the last one in the room with Joe Biden before he made the decision to pull out. Now, while that's happening, there's also Tim Walz. You will notice in the rundown of the show, I started with Kamala Harris. I'll end with Walz. Why? Because she's who the Republicans are running against, not Tim Walz. And there's so much more being dropped on him than her. I fear we can get distracted. But here are today's headlines about Tim Walz. From ABC News, Tim Walz mischaracterized his military service. From CNN, Tim Walz lied about his drunk driving arrest. From the Washington Post, Tim Walz lied about J.D. Vance's record on pro-worker legislation. From Fox News, Tim Walz praised anti-Semitic Muslim cleric on video. Now, I want to focus for a moment on the ABC News story. This is sourced via Alex Thompson at Axios, crediting it to Will Steeken and Olivia Rubin at ABC News. Steeken and Rubin at ABC News report that in 2016, Thomas Behrens, who took over Walz's battalion after Walz retired from military service in 2005, penned a private letter to Walz imploring him to stop using the title Command Sergeant Major. Quote, "It saddens me that after your long career in the National Guard, that you did not fulfill the conditions of your promotion to Command Sergeant Major. It's quite a title to have when it has been earned. I would hope that you haven't been using the rank for political gain, but that it is how it appears." The headline for the story at ABC News is Tim Walz previously faced criticism over the way he characterized his military service. The problem with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris is that they are opportunists. They are embellishers who will say or do whatever they need to do to get ahead. And Tim Walz served honorably for 24 years. No one can take that from him. Tim Walz served honorably for 24 years. The problem, however, is that when Tim Walz left the military, he lied about his position. He claimed to be a command sergeant major, which he was going to be promoted to as he took his troops to Iraq. But when he found out that more likely than not he was going to go to Iraq, he decided to retire and run for political office. And when running for political office, claimed a position he did not have. Other people had to go to Iraq because Tim Walz decided he'd rather run for office. There's no denying he served 24 years honorably. It's the way he ended it that's the problem. And along the way, the media is trying to make Tim Walz a folksy Midwestern politician. That's the word they use, folksy, by the way. Well coordinated. Everybody was like, remember back in the day, for those of you around, when George W. Bush picked Dick Cheney, gravitas was the word everyone in the media used. Now, why? Because they had a briefing with someone somewhere tied to George Bush who used the word gravitas, and so every member of the media used the word gravitas. Now, undoubtedly, when the Harris campaign was explaining why they picked Walz, someone used the word folksy, and so now everybody in the media is using the word folksy. That's the way it works. Always has, always will. It's an echo chamber. Problem is that Tim Walz on the campaign trail continues to generate applause with a particular line, mind your own damn business. That's what Walz says regularly on the campaign trail. It is his line that in Minnesota, that's the golden rule in Minnesota. It's not love your neighbor as yourself. No, it's mind your own business. The problem is, of course, that that's not the way Tim Walz operated when he was governor in Minnesota. He actually operated a surveillance state where he would encourage people to turn in their neighbors, snitch on their neighbors for things that he thought were bad for COVID. So here he is in a speech.
In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and we respect their personal choices. Now look, it's not difficult. I might not agree with my neighbor's choices or make the same one. But this country's great because we have a golden rule that makes things work. We mind our own damn business on those things. We mind our own damn business.
Now, I would note, actually, as an evangelical Christian, it offends me that he would co-opt the golden rule to say it's mind your own damn business, because that's actually not it. That's actually the opposite of the golden rule when you tie it into the story of the Good Samaritan, where the golden rule, according to Jesus Christ, is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it actually does offend me that he would call mind your own damn business the golden rule, because the whole story of the Good Samaritan was of the Good Samaritan who did not mind his own damn business, but saw his neighbor in the ditch beat up and decided to help him. He did to his neighbor as he would hope the neighbor would do for him. That's my personal view here. The problem is Tim Walz is also a hypocrite on this, because Tim Walz, here, you got to hear this again. You got to hear the beginning of this again.
In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and we respect their personal choices.
That's what he says. We respect our neighbors and personal choices, except Tim Walz. You're going to hear him on a phone call briefing where Tim Walz set up a snitch line, where when a neighbor made a choice the other neighbor disagreed with, the neighbor could call the government and have the police show up at that person's house. And how does Walz characterize it? It's for their own good.
Paul Gazelka wants you to take the hotline down for people to report violations of the stay-home order. Do we need a hotline? Is it being used?
It is being used, and we simply want people to be able to call and let folks know, and it's for their own good. We have numbers. If somebody sees a fire at a neighbor's house, they want to tell them. If we see people that may not be as informed on this, it's an educational piece. So we're certainly going to do that, and we're not going to take down a telephone number that allows people just to try and keep their neighbors safe.
See, they're trying to keep the neighbors safe. Don't you love how he spins it in that regard? It was a snitch line, where if your neighbor was out walking the dog without a mask on, the neighbor could call the line and have the police show up and tell them to put their mask on. Walz also believes that if you don't support your child's gender transition, the state, should be able to take your child away from you to help your child. It's your child, not the state's child, but Tim Walz believes that he knows better. That's not minding your own damn business. That's the state interfering in both cases. He wants to have it both ways. It's a folksy charm thing that he does, and of course the media applauds and, oh, they want to leave us alone. What it's getting at is the undertone of abortion here, that it's your body, your choice, except the problem is every other time he wants the state to interfere. It's your child. It's now the government's choice. It's your body, your choice, except when it comes to COVID. It's your body, your choice, except when it comes to anything else he wants the government to interfere with. On top of that, Tim Walz lied about his military record. This is who the Democrats have chosen. Now, what's notable is yesterday I said we do have to be careful. We don't want to think so much that we're winning this fight on him. When we see it all on Twitter, it's buzzing on Twitter, and because it's buzzing on Twitter, it must be penetrating the cultural conversations, the zeitgeist, if you will. But the fact that ABC and Fox News and the Washington Post and CNN are all running stories today about his lies and his false characterizations of his record means that the social media conversations are beginning to trickle out there. You got to be very, very careful to make sure that what we're seeing online, particularly on Twitter, is actually happening in the real world. The fact that we're starting to see these headlines is a pretty big indication that, yes, in fact, this is headed in the right direction, that Walz is beginning to be negatively defined. There's a problem, though. And this, again, is the big problem. The big problem is that Kamala Harris is the nominee, not Tim Walz. The Democrats poured a lot of energy into J.D. Vance. They poured a lot of energy into J.D. Vance in large part because their calculation was people already didn't like Trump, so now let's make people not like his VP, and so people won't be able to rationalize, well, I'll vote for Trump because I like his VP. And some of you will say, well, maybe that's what the Republicans are doing. How do you know? No, I don't think that's actually what the Republicans are doing. I think the Republicans are out there still trying to find things to pin on Kamala Harris in her own right, and so they're focused on Tim Walz while they're trying to find stuff to focus on Harris. With Harris, I think Donald Trump has finally hit on the line, and it's the line that I think is going to keep resonating.
Kamala has declared that tackling inflation will be a day one priority. Think of it, for her, but day one for Kamala was 3.5 years ago. Why hasn't she done it?
There you go, right there. He needs to bring that up all the time. Every time she's going to say something on day one, I'll do this, because she's going to be day one this, day one that. That was 3.5 years ago. Why didn't you do it? You begin to define her by the failures of the Biden administration. Peter Doocy, I don't have the clip pulled up for you, but Peter Doocy asked Joe Biden what he thinks about Kamala beginning to distance herself from him, and he went absolutely postal on Peter Doocy and said, no, she is not. They've been very successful, and she will stand by the record of the Biden-Harris administration. So this is going to be a very fun fight to shape up if it heads in that direction. It's going to be a very intriguing fight to watch. So we got Tim Walz reminding people he's a nanny stater who lied about his military record, and now reminding people that Kamala Harris has been there for 3.5 years. She could have done things sooner. She doesn't have to wait until January of next year. Together, I think Republicans have an argument to stop the forward momentum of her polling and turn it back around. The question will be what they do next week during the Democratic National Convention, but I suspect they're hatching a plan right now. I would like to turn your attention to the Eden Pure Thunderstorm because it's a great air purifier, which I have used often in rental cars and in hotel rooms and in my own car and my own house. It wipes out odors. It's not just an air purifier in that it gets rid of dust and pollen. It actually eliminates odors, generates ozone that binds to the ions of odors, whatever the odor is, and wipes them out. You can't hide from ozone if you're an odor. So if you're a dirty diaper odor, or you're a litter box odor, you're a wet dog odor, you're a frying shrimp in the kitchen and your wife hates the smell, Erickson odor, or someone smoked in a rental car, you can plug it in with a USB cord into like an outlet. I've plugged it into my laptop. You can also plug it directly into the wall, and it packs a wall up. It wipes out odors. It's small enough you can hold it in the palm of your hand. You go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. You'll get 3 of them for less than $200. You'll save $200, and you'll be eliminating the odors in your house. So you get 3 of them, upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your RV, your travel bag, wherever you need them. I've walked into hotel rooms where they've been fired up by the hotel staff because there was a fireplace that would otherwise have smelled in the hotel room. Wiped out the odors, never smelled the fireplace. It worked great. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. Well, isn't it hilarious that suddenly the media wants to talk about this story?
Like, how do you think does this play? What does Harris do about this? Anything?
I mean, it's not Kamala Harris's son, and so there's a little bit more distance than when it was the presidential nominee's son. This isn't great. Hunter Biden, everybody in the White House has known for a long time as an issue. The way that that his lawyers responded to this disclosure, to say like, well, yeah, he sent letters but did nothing wrong. This feels very strange to people that the vice president's son was sending letters or making requests to other government officials and saying, hey, would you meet with this company? It may have been legal. We don't know anything otherwise at this point. Like Matt said, we haven't seen the contents of the letter. It does look like he was at least making people say, you notice my last name though, right?
Yeah.
So now a press that has largely tried to avoid the Hunter Biden story, now that Joe's not running, it's fair game. He was even asked about this at the White House. Karine Jean-Pierre was.
The New York Times is reporting that Hunter Biden sought help from a U.S. ambassador on behalf of Burisma while he was on the company's board and while Biden was vice president. So what's Biden's reaction to this, and is he concerned about what this looks like to the American public?
So I'll just report what I've said before, is that the president has never done business with his son, and he was not aware of this. And for anything further, I would have to refer you to Hunter Biden's personal representatives. I can't speak beyond that. But again, I've said this before, the president was not in business with his son, and this is the first time, he was not aware of this. And for anything further, you would have to reach out to Hunter Biden.
So now that Joe Biden is not a candidate for president of the United States, it suddenly becomes fair game for members of the media outside of Peter Doocy at Fox News to start raising questions about the propriety of Hunter Biden dropping his family name with officials inside the government to get help with his clients. To my knowledge, and I think this is one of the latest accusations from prosecutors, didn't disclose himself as a agent of a foreign government when he did so. That would have been problematic. And the media has been completely incurious. Now, to be fair, because members of the media will insist, Erickson, you must say this. This is new allegation. It is a new allegation that has come forward from prosecutors. However, it's related to all the other stuff the media hasn't wanted to talk about either. And probably had members of the media done some digging, they could have uncovered this before it was spoon-fed to them by a prosecutor. But they wanted to show no intellectual curiosity at all about the situation because they wanted to protect their precious Joe Biden until suddenly he became expendable. And now they're protecting Kamala Harris in the way they used to protect Joe Biden. Still remarkable to me. For those of you still in despair, just remember it was 6 months ago. The media was telling Joe Biden, please get rid of Kamala Harris. She's terrible. She hasn't changed in 6 months. Just give this time to play out. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.